Teal, will you sing me a song?
Like a diamond in the sky, twinkle, twinkle, little star, I wonder what you are.
Good job, Tealy.
My best memory is when you guys were all born, because I remember each of those times very specifically.
Well, because it was the first baby I had, and it was the first time I became a mom.
My favorite memory is when you guys were really little and we would play together. You guys are all very different, but we would build, forts in the living room and the dining room, and we would cover things up and make kind of play areas inside in the winter. That time was right before we got divorced.
I'm not perfect. Anything you guys have accomplished, you've done on your own.
My dad passed away, and I was 13, and I remember he was hunting for the weekend, and it was Sunday night. We were waiting for him to come home because he went to a cabin with his friends, and they were deer hunting. And anyway, it got to be dusk, and he wasn't home yet, and I wasn't really worried about that. But then a knock came to the door, and I answered the door, and it was 2 state troopers, and they didn't tell me anything, but they asked for my mom, and turned out that my dad had passed away on this trip. And so I was scared to death, obviously, because the troopers just seemed to be, to me, I was 13 at the time, they were huge.
I guess anytime my kids end up in the hospital, which has happened often, once with you, well, more than once with you, I was glad that we could get you help, because that doesn't always happen, even if people ask for it. I was glad that you asked for help and that we could find help for you. It hurt me that you were hurting, I guess.
Tommy had his Addisonian crisis, but he was really sick for a long time, and we didn't know what was wrong. And then the day the crisis happened, he really was very sick and weak all night. He was throwing up, and so I made an appointment to take him to the doctor in the morning, and tried to get him to come downstairs, and he said he couldn't walk. And I got him to the stairs, and then I went downstairs to get something, and he tried to come down on his own, and I met him about halfway up, and he fell, and I caught him, and he was just so weak that he couldn't, he had no control over his body. We took him to the hospital, and they took him by ambulance to Milwaukee Children's Hospital.
Nothing else matters except for focusing in on the problem and how best can we get through it and fix it.
Sorry, these both bring up a lot of memories.
Ellie, when she was born, she was like, I call her our comedic relief, because she was a funny baby. She was pretty chill because she had to be. You were 3 and Tommy was 2 and she was 0. And so she just kind of had to, I was taking care of toddlers plus her, so she just kind of chilled out, and she was always smiling and laughing. I think still to this day she kind of has that bubbly personality.
Ellie was a real, she liked to play with dolls, so she was always in the house playing with dolls, and always had her own kind of imaginary world in that house.
She has her moments, and she has her stressors and her anxiety and her issues, just like all human beings, just like each of us.
We did a lot of things together, and I remember that. I miss that, actually, a lot.
My whole life there has always been a dog that peed on the carpet. It always happened, and we always had to complain a little bit and then clean it up. I guess life is just like those dogs that always peed on the carpets. It was inevitable, the mess they always left. And instead of pounding our fists into the wall and throwing a fit, we just learned to take it and clean it up. Because that's what we have to do, as a family. At this point, after all that has happened, that's the only way we can handle it. The dog pees on the carpet, and we just clean it up.